Foreflight, that's a good subject.
Well, thank you, Ken. And this is really more just a kind of a jumping off thing to talk about flight planning. And it's not like I have any special way or the best way or anything like that. And I think it's an opportunity for us all to learn from each other. And what do you do? How do you do it? And I'll just kind of go through what I do when I'm, starting to think about a flight. And so the first thing I do is I want to get a picture out of the big picture, right? And one thing, there's people who have been flying a lot more than I have, but I'm in an Aerostar for quite a while that doesn't have known icing, and also I'm kind of a weather scaredy cat. So, what I've learned is that if weather is seeming to be worse than they forecast, it kind of continues to be worse than they forecast because they try to go back to kind of a median. But if it's a little bit better than they forecast, you can still get caught unawares. But so I will go and, this is just Weather Channel. You can watch the Weather Channel, but they have a deal that goes a few days out. And so, right now, let's just say we're going Dallas to Chicago. There's a fair amount of weather. You can look in the forecast and see if I can get this to do it. And it's supposed to. It seems like it's not changing. Oh, there we go. I think maybe the Wi-Fi down here, you have to re-log into it every so often. So let's just do that real quick. Turn that off. Okay, Lowe's conference. So. Okay. Okay, now we need to go to have it. Yeah. Okay. And then. See, it should be bringing us up to a login page, a sign-in page, but it's not. For some reason, it's not bringing us to the page here that would allow us to log in. Okay. There we go. I tried that, but here, let's try it differently. C, okay. L, V, ZR. Okay. Yeah, there we go. Okay, that works. Okay, here we are. And so you look out and you can see it's quite a bit of weather today. The next day, it's a little bit better. And, you know, Wednesday is going to be a good day for flying, but we want to do it today. So let's go and check, you know, if we bring up Foreflight, we put in Dallas to Palwaukee, and we can see there's definitely some weather that we're going to have to deal with. And, you know, one of the things when you're looking at weather, there are paid products out there, and then there's a lot, basically all the paid products come from stuff that's free. But, and you can go and you can learn all how to read, you know, soundings from, you know, log T, charts and what they have, but the paid products seem to be just so much easier for me, and some of them are pretty marginal on what the costs are. There's a guy, I took a course with Scott Denistad. Has anybody ever, you know, heard that guy? He was with Foreflight for a while. He also developed one called WeatherSpork, and you put in a, you know, this is Dallas, Fort Smith, St. Louis, and you can change that around however you want, or you can just put in the destination and the starting point, and then hit apply. And this gives you a, you know, what's going on right now. And so you can take, and there's a slider on when we're going to depart. And so you can kind of move it along. And the way this works is if there is a, like in this case, there's a convective segment from surface to flight level 420, and that's in the Dallas area. But if you slide on, you'll see the yellow down at the bottom. That says that there's a chance for thunderstorms. The blue is a chance for precipitation. And this, I'm not going to go into this in detail, but you can see some of these ceilings are pretty low, but they're, this is 600. And, you know, the way they get these forecasts when they get out here, and then you can see again on Tuesday, in the evening, it's going to clear up and be pretty, you know, there's a freezing level, which is kind of nice to know. You can see the blue dotted line. It's kind of nice to know because you can say, well, I know if I stay below the freezing level, you know, so if I go at, let's just say 9,000, I'm going to have a headwind there, and it kind of dies down, and it's no headwind further out. And you can say that you're below the clouds for most of it. There's also a map view that, again, you can have a slider that tells you, let's go back, and you can kind of see where the, you know, the bad weather is as you slide it along. And that's kind of handy to know. And again, this all comes from readily available information, but you don't have to go down to everything and put it together in your head. You can just look at it. There's also a grid view that tells you, you know, where your problems are going to be, and you just go along. And if you want to see, okay, what's going on here, you just click on it, and it actually gives, you know, this is Bill Martin Memorial, and it tells you what the forecast ceiling is, the winds, and you know, a lot of this, if you go up to, let's just say, observations, you've got METARs, you've got, you know, radar, and you've got the SKU-T, and let's just go to and put in one for, so there's Fort Smith. This is kind of where there is some weather right now, and I'll go briefly, and if anybody has any questions on this, just ask it, and And the way it works is they actually used to send up sondes, and they still do in certain places, but they also get information from airline. As they climb through, they report the information. There's let's see, there's some other, does anybody know? I think there's like 4 sources where they get this information, and then they interpolate it for every airport in the country. And I think you can even put just a remote, like put in the coordinates for a location, and it'll tell you what the weather forecast using this is. And if you go down to the bottom here, you can see that it has, this one is, the first one is F9. That just means it's 9 hours out. It's a forecast for 9 hours out. And that's what is up right now. But if we go down to here and I click that bottom box, that's the current one. And it's actually in the past. This one, what is it, 1400 Zulu. So that would have been 45 minutes ago. Yes?
Is this an app on your iPad?
This is WeatherSport, and it's app on an iPad. It's also available, for on your like Android phone, and it's available on, for if you have a laptop too.
Okay, so they have a web interface as well as apps for both iPad.
Yep, yep, and there are other ones like that. There's Windy, there's Vestry, and I don't know what. I'd be interested, what do people use for their weather app, when they're going along? Does anybody want to share that up? What do you use?
I do some of my pre-flight, like you're saying, the long-range stuff. I do that mostly on National Weather Service Aviation.
Yeah.
It's free, right? So I tend to use that. I'm comfortable with using that.
And it's just a little harder learning curve. I mean, if they would organize it a little bit better, it would be a lot easier. But they do have. Yeah, they have a flight path tool that you can go and you put, like, let's just say 100 miles on either side, and then it goes through and tells you what the weather is along that route. Obviously, this does that, and
yeah, well, what's nice about what WeatherSport does is it'll give you the slider for when you plan to depart, and it'll give this nice graphical depiction.
Yeah.
Of what things are looking like, which is that's about an hour and a half's worth of work on.
Right. Yeah.
It just slides back and forth, and the fact that you have this QT log Ps up there as well in WeatherSport, that's really handy.
Right.
For some of us weather nerds that like to look at that stuff. But close in, I use Foreflight.
Yeah. So, I mean, sometimes, for example, let's just look and we'll kind of, these are really down deep in the nitty gritty, and I'll just kind of, here's a microphone. And test, okay. Yeah, I can use a pointer. Somewhere, there we go. Okay, so when we're looking at this grid here shows, it's a plot of temperature and dew point, and the reason these are curved is because of the adiabatic cooling and all that. But and if you look right here, this temperature is 0 and it goes up. So if you wanted to know, for example, they had the freezing level here, they got that because they followed this chart and it crossed. When the sonde, if it was actually a balloon that went up, this is what it received. It received both of these, but this is the actual temperature. And this is the actual dew point. And so it crosses right here, and then this is at 600 millibars, which and you can go here and let's just do there. So that's about, so that is roughly, going to be about 15 to 14,000 feet. So that's where the chart gets where the freezing level is. And there's also, when this goes up, this is looking straight down on where they released it. It kind of moves around and skews off like this. Well, that is used to give this, And this is how far away from the point it was, and these are barbs. And the thing to remember about barbs is that think of it like an arrow. The feathers are, they tell you how strong the wind is, but they're always the tail end, and the point of the arrow is the other way. So this one it's from the west. So sometimes it's like, well, why didn't they have it where the direction it's going? But this is the way that they're all done. You're not going to see anyone different, and you'll still see these a lot. So, this one, once it gets to be a flag like that, that's 50. You go down here, that's 2 barbs, so that's 20 knots. And one thing is if it's just going up and getting stronger, that's to be expected. But if it's twisting around and going that can tell you that there can be wind shear, possibly even tornadic activity. Another thing that's important up here is at the top, that's CAPE. That's the at any rate, it's the lift potential. And so think of each little molecule of air. It has the potential to be lifted. This is how much. At 310, there's not very much lifting potential. Underneath it's called CIN. That is the inhibitant, how much it's being inhibited. And I'm not going to go into any detail on that, except that number is a negative number. And come back. That number tells you, okay, even if you have a high CAPE, if you have a high inhibiting number, then you're not going to get thunderstorms. And all that kind of is off in mountainous areas because what that inhibiting layer is really, there's a trigger for the lift to start. Once it gets started, if there's CAPE at all, it's going to continue to go. In the mountains, the wind comes across and it gets kicked up just from the mountains and you get turbulence. And so that's why almost every afternoon, even if they're in a really high CAPE or maybe there's a high, relatively high inhibiting number, you can see thunderstorms anytime. And the question is, how high are they going to go? What's going to, that's where the rest of this chart kind of comes in. And you can see, because the dew point and the temperature are really close together, then you probably have clouds at that area. So there's clouds going all the way down the surface, and I don't remember we can look at what it was, but I imagine a real low ceiling for Fort Smith. And this is farther apart, but still there can be, because there's lifting, there can be clouds, cumulus clouds in there. Sometimes you're looking at a forecast and it says that there's, you want to know, are there going to be low clouds or high clouds? You'll look and see that these two are far apart, but then around, let's just say, 10,000 feet, they come together at a point where you're probably going to have a cloud layer there. And this isn't something you need to know, but if it is something you might be interested in, especially if you kind of become a weather geek and you want to do that. And I'm going to leave QT log P diagrams and not go back unless somebody wants, does anybody have a question about it? And I know there are people here that know this way better than I do. So, okay, then we go from the observations. You also have forecasts. Several different places have, sites have ways that they present it, but I'm going to go, one's called a meteogram, and it's kind of cool because if you look at it, it shows this is, current time, so, noon is there, and then these are the days going across, and if you look down here, these are altitudes, and this can be changed. So right now, I think it's at, it's pretty low, so if I go in and do setup and preferences, there we are. And I can tell it how high I want it to go. Well, I should be able to, but that could be just a function of the meteogram, but I'm not going to go into that right now. So let's go back to forecast, meteogram. And this right here is the blue is the chance of precipitation, and this is the surface winds, and the green is gusting, and then down here you have the temperature and the humidity and the dew point, and so you can see right here the dew point crossing, so that you could have a fog layer, so overnight here. What else? And if I click on, a different time, it tells me, the freezing levels at 12 is greater than 12,000, what the winds are, that there's an IFR. If you look down here, there's an IFR segment, and then the visibility. So that just gives you an idea of what's going on there, either at your destination or your starting point or somewhere. You can also go, there's the 7-day forecast, which again, this is all available free too. You got the TAF, but it's kind of nice because a lot of them don't give, what the winds are likely to be and things like that. You've got to kind of dig in and find that. And it goes out 7 days. A lot of them don't go out that far. There's the forecast, the TAF, there's a forecast discussion. And then again, we'll go back this route profile. Now we have, okay, we're gonna go today. So let's go to Foreflight. And how many people use Foreflight? Okay. So most people here do. And, I just put in, Dallas, and it's like, okay, what's that? And there's a alert, and it shows you, there's a lot of features that, this one, and it's kind of crazy. I'll just tell you that the other day I flew into Love Field, and it had the 1-3 left was notumed as, closed, and then there was a temporary notum for 1-3 right as closed during certain hours. And there isn't another runway there. And so I just called the tower and I asked them what's going on. Well, they're doing construction. Who thought it was a good idea to do construction on both runways? I don't know. But I go, in the airport closed in? He goes, well, not technically. So he just said that they canceled it anyway, so you can go ahead and do your flight. But the ones, if there's a little badge up there that is, that means something pretty major is going on there. So always look at those. Now, okay, how I'm going to go, you can look at the routes. And I don't know if everybody uses these, but they'll tell you a recommended one. I will just say that when you file the recommended one, odds are you're probably not going to get that one because it isn't. This, I'm sure the FAA doesn't look at this when they decide what they're going to do. But when you click on it, okay, that one shows going that way. This one goes a little bit north, which might be a good idea. Then you could deviate a little bit to the north on the 3/4 of the way through and get around it. There are different routes you can try. So, and it also says the flight levels that they're cleared at. A lot of times there isn't one for our altitude. This one is, yes.
There's a little filter thing at the top right.
Yeah.
Click on that, you can change your altitude.
Right. But I don't think that doesn't change it for the routing. Because what I was showing, okay, this one, for example, it comes up here and it's flight level 390 to 450. So, at any rate, what that does is when you go to your altitudes, it shows you what altitudes and what your winds are, and you can select VFR, IFR, westerly, easterly. So we're going to go IFR. We already looked, and we saw that it was 17,000 or so was where the freezing level was, and a lot of people will try to go over that, but it looked to me like the tops were likely to be higher than that. So, so we'll just put in here that we're going to go at 14,000, and we're going to have, it's going to be 3 hours and 3 minutes. And this, there's a performance profile for the Aerostar that you have to be on. Is it the Pro plan or something like that? But it will actually calculate your times based on when you go higher, you can go faster. Because a lot of it, I have a spreadsheet that I use and I used to use, and but you have to say, okay, not only when I go higher are there winds, but also the performance of the aircraft is different. And so it gets kind of hard sometimes to know, should I go high, should I go low? And so with this, these numbers are pretty accurate. They don't take in consideration, like if you have to do an approach, you're definitely gonna, that's gonna take, 10 minutes, something like that. They can also vector you around when you get there, but we're not gonna do that, and we're gonna pick the, let's go back. The route, we're just gonna pick this route, no, this one. And we'll select that route, and we're gonna say that the winds are from the south, and we'll go to, I know the left is closed, so we're gonna do 13 right. And which Plano? We're gonna do the, okay. So it puts that in there, and the nice thing is that if you have a 510 or something like that, it will actually ask you if you want to load that up. If you put one in your Garmin, it will ask you if you want to drop that one down. Just remember, if you did a lot of work on putting one in, if you go the wrong way, it'll wipe it out, and you have to put it in. But so now we have this in there. There are procedures, so it might, you're thinking, okay, I'm going to have to do a departure coming out of here. So you can look at it and try to see, well, what's this one right here? And that one is the, and I don't even, that's SWT, which stands for, I don't remember, but, and that's the one that it shows by default. So that's already in there. And now we want to, do some planning on that. And what we do next is we got that in there, and they've changed where it is. Okay, it's over here. And you can do things like, here is a view where you can put it in. You can actually fly this. Yes?
Which tier of subscription do you have?
I have I think it's called Professional.
Pro,
Yeah, so I think it's like, the base one is like, what, 90? And then that one's like 90, and so it's like almost $200 by the time, a year, so.
I'm at $240 a year, and that's for the Midland one. And then
Okay.
the performance one is like $400 or something like that a year. I was just, because that looks like one of the premium features.
So,
That I haven't figured out how to get it out of mine.
yeah, so it has, and I can look here in a minute and see, but as soon as you take off, you're going to be in the clouds, and they have the different layers that come in. You can come in and you can do icing. So let's see, right now that's 1,000 feet, but if you put it on up to like 17,000 feet, now you can see, and let's see, how do I move? Okay, move this by going this way. And so you can see the clouds and the icing, and again, there's another section of icing. And it's pretty handy. So like we're at 17, but if we drop it to 14, let's just see. Okay, so there is still, so we may want to, towards the back end of our flight, there's some icing potential. So we may want to drop down as we get a little further out. Okay, there's also, you can do turbulence and see what it's showing there. Here, I'll turn off the, turbulence. And see what it shows. Okay. So it's not look like, this is going to be a real turbulent day. So that's not really, okay. Ended up in the wrong thing. Here we go. Okay, so we'll close that. There's also a profile which just, it's helpful to look and see what's there. You've got the Class B airspace. You've got some other airspace along the way. If there was terrain here, if we were going to the mountains, you would see that. And it would highlight anything that was, close to I think within 1,000 feet would be highlighted. Now, what do we want to do? We want to go to, you can save it just by doing a star. You can give it a name. But now we want to do, and this little thing is shared, just like all iPad stuff. When it's a little thing that has an arrow out, that's sharing. And so what you do is different with everything, but every program. But this one, I could email it, but I'm going to do this and put it on flights, and that sends it over. And the other thing was I could have put in estimated time of departure back then, but I'm going to do it here. So you'll see right here, that is the flight that we just sent over. And up here, there's the nav log that we can, look at, and it's pretty detailed about, and to be honest, I don't really ever look at it. The only one I really use is briefings, and that's the next one over. You have, this will be when you send it in as a flight plan, you'll get files back and there'll be like a complete weather briefing that you can take with you. And there'll also be the emails coming back from Foreflight about what your expected route is. And the thing to remember about expected routes is that that is just something that even the FAA, that comes from the FAA, and they are not that just because you got an expected route that was different, if they come back and say depart blah, 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 and they give you a couple of intersections, and then they said as filed, that does not mean the expected route. That means what you actually filed. So, and people have gotten screwed up on that before. And if there's any question, just ask them. Say, hey, would you give me what that expected route was? Because I got, I have two of them here. So, next is, we going to do this about an ETA or estimated time of departure? We've got the departure here. And again, we'll just say that it's today, and we're going to leave at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And then you just close that, and you've got your departure right here, destination, and then if you need an alternate, you'd put it here. The aircraft, the profile you're using. Right now, here's the flight plan, the route, cruising altitude, number of people aboard. It's just me today. You can have your minimum fuel. You can also put in, maximum fuel, or you can put in, let's just say, well, we're going to do 125 gallons, and close. And then it says manual fuel right there. And let's look and see if we have enough. Okay, so it looks like we're going to end up with 13 gallons extra after we have our alternate, no alternate today, and then extra fuel reserve. And I always like to land with an hour, in the tank. So that's how and you can put that in whatever you want it to be. And then you come down here and you can proceed to file. And this is a form just like, and has, there are different ways to file it, but the ICAO is what we use in the United States. So, and everybody, you probably sat and tried to figure out, okay, what are the identifiers you put in afterwards, and it's fairly cumbersome. And this is what I put in, and I'm not even going to what all those slashes are, but they're different equipment, and no, I don't carry around a life raft or anything like that. So, and then the airspeed, all those things, and then once you hit file, it actually files it, and you get a reply that says it's confirmed that it's been filed, And when you call, I mean, it's rare that I have where it's not there waiting for me, and pretty quickly. I mean, if you give it 10 minutes, it's going to be there for sure. Yes?
Yeah, sometimes it'll actually give you a notification of a root update.
Yeah, it will. But again, that doesn't override, what you filed if they say as filed, so.
It's a suggestion, and we
Yeah.
accept this, so it gives you whether you want to accept or not.
The other thing I'll tell you, this is for IFR. You can also, if you put in VFR, where was that? Okay, flight rules. If you put in VFR, when you go down to, I'm not sure why it has the minimum fuel there, but we'll look at here. You can proceed to file, it'll file a VFR flight plan, and then there's a button to activate the flight plan. And it actually activates it with the FAA. So if you fly to your destination, and this actually happened to me, I was just checking it out, I clicked, oh, well, that's kind of cool, so I activated it, I landed in, Kerrville, and then I get a phone call a little while later, did you didn't close out your flight plan? I'm going, oh, and here it'll have a place to cancel your flight plan and close your flight plan. And so those are pretty powerful things that you can do without even getting on the phone. You don't have to call anybody, and it's all in one place. Let's put this back to IFR, and you click on a briefing, and it says new briefing unavailable for some reason. Why is that? Okay, let's do that. Briefing.
You got 2 a.m. maybe?
Oh, yeah, okay, I got it. Close. Let's do PM is what I should have done. Close. Now we do a briefing, and it loads it down. It actually keeps a record that you downloaded this briefing, but more than that, it actually keeps a record of which pages you scrolled through. So the nice thing is, you can meet the requirement of checking all available information by downloading this and then going through every page. And, that's pretty helpful. It can be if you're out where you don't have very good internet. And I have a new iPad, and the reason I got it is a lot of places have 5G only. So my old iPad did not have a 5G in it. And yes, I could take my cell phone, do a hotspot and all that. So I bought a new one, and I found it is a lot faster, both in doing the downloads and the updates for the charts and all that, by a lot. It's a lot faster. But obviously the new iPads are kind of pricey. So I will tell you, I got the nano screen. Don't waste your money. You're not going to make if you clean your screen with a rag, and it's just as good as a nano screen in a bright cockpit. So do not waste extra money on like I did. And plus it's real fragile, and you can easily scratch it, and you have to carry around a special cloth to clean it with. This is a special cloth. My first one somehow ended up in the box and got thrown away, so I had to order another one. But so at any rate, don't waste your money on the nano screen. It comes up and you have TFRs. This is where George Bush lives in Highland Park, so that's why that one's there. It's always there. So that means every time you fly into Love Field, now you have to have a flight plan on file, and it could be VFR, but this is closed or unsafe. And again, you see, here we go, 1-3 right, 1-3 left, closed, and then here's the one for, okay. So now you've got to figure out when is the airport, why doesn't it say the airport's closed, but it doesn't. So, and what they tell you is you have to call before to confirm that the airport's going to be open, the runway's going to be open while you're wanting to land on it. 30 minutes before you want to land. So I'm only to the FAA does that make sense, because I'm in the air 30 minutes before I want to land. So I don't know how I'm going to call them. So I called ahead of time, and they told me don't worry about it. convective segments, and the green ones mean you don't, it's inactive during when you're going to be passing. If it was a red one, then it would be something that would be during when you're going, but still, if they're close, it's worth looking at it and seeing. There's IFR, there's turbulence, and I'm not going to go through all these except to just say that I will go through and look at all these. You can get the PIREPs. You can also get them from the map view. Obviously, if there's a segment that, just because there's no segment when you're going in the afternoon, because those only last, how long do they put out segments? They're, what, 6 hours or something like that, 4 hours? Does anybody remember? 4? Okay, so that particular segment's going to be over, but there's probably going to be a new one for convective that's in the same, or close to the same area. So you can't really trust that unless you're like flying right now. Cloud coverage, I will look at this and let's just say, okay, we'll go south central, and you can kind of zoom in on it, but you can see what the cloud coverage is. So we're taking off here, and the area where we're going to be overcast at 1500, tops at 7,000, clear above. And you can kind of go along and you can get some feel for what it's going to be like where you're going. Because, lots of times you can just fly along, and even though it's raining, even though, it's not a big deal. But sometimes, especially certain times of the year, it is. There's a chance for thunderstorms, and, if you have onboard radar and all that, and you have, maybe NexRad with your, with ADSB out or something like that, it makes a huge difference. But it's nice to kind of know what it's going to be like ahead of time. So, and I'm not going to go through all this, but that's how I do it. And then when I take off, I'm going to put it on, some view where I have, let's just go in, and I have, a lot of times it'll be what the ceilings are, just so I kind of know. And, these are obviously nothing you really have to worry about, but it is nice, nice to know that even though this doesn't show any convective activity, the tops are at 35,000. So you're not going to go over them. So and then when you get down here, again, there is a little thing here. You'll just keep your eye on it and deviate if you need to. I always like to look and see where the MOAs are and the space that I may be asked to deviate around. And, it might make sense to go ahead and deviate over here to go around this one anyway. Because what happens is, let's just say they want you to go around this MOA right here and fly, here. And this is moving over this way. Now, all of a sudden, your options go way down. And you say, hey, you know what? Instead of that, why don't I go and I fly direct, something like over to Burlington up here, and then I'm clear of all that. I don't have to, get caught in the bike, because that's what you're just trying to do. The whole purpose is keeping your options open. That's why you do this planning. And so I always look at it, obviously icing, for example, you got plenty of options when it's summer, because you can always go lower, unless you're over the mountains or something like that. Even then, you're usually going to be okay. But when it's not, then you have to decide, okay, maybe my only real option is flying underneath it, and if it gets bad, I'm just going to land. That's my option, landing. And there's nothing wrong with that. And there are a lot of flights I've completed. I've flown a long way, at 3,500 feet to stay where I can see thunderstorms, or and I've even come across, I was, I think near Fargo, and I'm going along, and there's 2 thunderstorms, there's rain shower, and I'm at like 3,500 feet going between them, and here comes, I think it was a 737, coming the other way, and he was doing the same thing. So, he probably just taken off, but at any rate, there's nothing wrong with that. And if you like to go over the top of things, that's fine. I just, because I don't have known icing, that doesn't work out for me a lot. So, Yes, you have a question?
Oh, I keep looking at this weather depiction, which is a forecast. Is that forecast for your departure time or about the time the airplane will be up around?
So this is actual real time. And
This is real time.
yeah, this is real time, and you know, that is something to, you know, when you look at it, if you click on, where did I put this? So if you, up here, and it says arrow and ceiling, this is where you click on the layers, and right now it's radar, but you can change the radar to, you know, a classic radar, but if you go down, there's icing, and this shows, okay, the icing severity, and you can see here, it's light, moderate, severe, but over here is the altitude that it's set for, and down here is a slider that says how far out. So let's just say our flight is, well, I think we said this afternoon, so it's maybe, let's just say 7 hours in advance, and we're planning on going at, let's just say 14,000. And so it's light icing the whole way. If we go up, if we were going to have to, let's just say they told us to climb, okay, you know, right about here, we might not be so happy with that. And so, and it's, you know, it's like any, icing is difficult to predict, and it does not mean you're going to get icing there for sure. It also doesn't mean you're not going to get icing somewhere else where it doesn't depict it now. So, the good news is usually if you can, you know, in my case, I usually descend. I'll just tell you, I've had, and I know there are people that have great, you know, luck with Aerostar, and it's a fairly high loaded wing, and it can get affected pretty severely by icing. I've tried to climb out of it before, and I got some buffeting, you know, with not very much on it. And so I said, you know what, I'm going to go the other way. I'm going to go down. So just don't put yourself in a position where you have to climb out of icing. It also has the same thing for turbulence. Let's just put in turbulence. And okay, you know, you can, again, you've got the slider. We'll put that out 7 hours. And then you can go up and down, and you can kind of see, you know, what the different ones are. So at 14,000, not much. So, and then if you go and you can have it on, there's what's called a hazard advisor, and this has where you can, okay, if there's a segment, you know, there's Zulu for icing. Is there one? No, not really. Turbulence high, turbulence low, IFR, and then thunderstorm, convective activity. There's a lot of other things that we can go, wind speeds and things like that, but what questions do people have? Yes, Laurie?
Percentage of the time of what you file is what you get. My experience was like never.
What you, well, it depends a lot on, you know, where you're filing, because yeah, so like when I was flying out of Enid, Oklahoma, I filed direct to like Fargo, I almost always got that. But if you're, yeah, California, East Coast, but even around Dallas, I mean, I rarely get what I file. So
I just want to know.
I would say, you know, and one time I filed what I thought made the most sense, and when I got it, it was completely different. But then when I looked at it, okay, they're looking at the weather and they're routing me around the weather, and so it was actually a good flight. Another time I was coming out of I think it was Philadelphia, and they had me going right through. They didn't give me what I asked for, and they had me going right through, you know, some convective activity, and so, you know, I canceled and, you know, went around the Washington D.C., whatever that zone is, and then flew, you know, and so usually, but they are trying to have those make sense. And a lot of times, if you get the same thing and weather isn't an issue, you will get the same one, and it's just what works with their traffic flow.
Yeah, traffic.
Yeah. Yes, Don.
In flight planning with Foreflight, is there a way to optimize winds
Yeah, let's,
My dog leg rather than a straight line.
yep, let's go here and we'll edit this, also, you probably already know, but, here, if you look right here, you can put in estimated time of departure, and that will give you the actual forecast winds for that time period. So let's do this, and also here you can clear what you have put in here. You can also put in, you just reverse it by just hitting that button. But let's clear it, and we'll go, let's go from, let's put in, okay, we'll put in, what is it, Amarillo to, where are we going? We're going to go, what's Tucson? Is it? TUS. Okay. And now we're going to do it, let's just say today, because if you got, they don't really, the forecast isn't great farther, very far out, but let's just say 2:20 p.m., close that, and we'll click on here, and, it shows, like we knew, there's going to be headwinds, but if you look at the time, you can look at it, obviously you're going to, look at it and say, okay, do I want the shortest time? So in this case, flight level 220 has the shortest time. And even though it's not the least amount of headwind, it's the best combination of, forward speed and wind headwind. So.
I think it averages the winds over the so you may have a point on the trip where you get a pretty good headwind and then it dies out.
Yeah. And that's a great point. There are times when there's some rotation, for example, you might file going this way or this way to take advantage of that. I always thought that, the next step on this, they'll probably have the ability to have altitude by segment, but, you can run it and look at, so like if we just did from Amarillo to, let's just say, I don't know, Albuquerque, and you could look at that wind, you could look at, and so.
That would differ if you were going along, like Tucson to Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
And, would it be better to go north for a while and then pick up the wind going rather than a direct line?
Right. Because the other problem you have is when you're going, you've got these restricted areas here that, yeah. So, and the other factor you have is El Paso down here. Other than Aspen, Colorado, that's the highest cost of fuel I've ever gotten anywhere. So, and it's.
And those restricted areas just north of El Paso, those are unlimited.
They're unlimited, and I've called before to see if they're ever closed, and they are not. They're always open, and.
White Sands, every now and then, I've been cleared across.
Okay, well, I just plan on either going north or south. I'm going around them, so.
Joel, there's actually a brand new feature that just came out last week that will give you headwinds and tailwinds by wind segment.
Okay.
Click on the profile mode.
Okay, profile, yeah.
You don't have any waypoints in here, but if you click
Okay.
on the
Okay. Oh, well, this is good to know. Okay, let's add one. Let's go back to edit, and we'll put in, let's see, where we're going to put in. Let's maybe do. Okay, we'll do a route. Well, that doesn't have any. Okay, that does. Let's select route. Okay, ignore. And now we'll go to profile. And I can grab this or?
yours is not updated. Oh, yeah, it is. Look at see the layers tab towards the top, towards the right next to it.
Yes.
Yeah, and if you look at headwinds
Oh, okay.
Now, what you can also do, what I do now is I'll just look at their different routes that they gave me, I'll just punch through them and see what it's telling me. Or you can go into your flight plan mode and just drag your routes around real quickly and see if there's any impact.
I like to look at planner view, and you can see jet streams over it. That makes it really easy to see the road.
Yeah.
And then, that's in the wind speeds.
Yeah.
So that's, and then you can easily see the quick little dog leg keep you in the jet stream.
Yeah, that must be, you have the most, you have the highest level of subscription on that, on your Foreflight? Because some of these features aren't available.
Go down to menu and go to account, it'll tell you what account you got.
Okay, what else? Yes, Richard.
Going to procedures and departures, I see that 3, 2, and 12 are not authorized for departures.
Okay, let's see, let's go.
I presume that's IFR, you'd have to be an IFR board.
Well, you can file for and put it in your flight plan, a SID, and I will oftentimes do that, but you don't get that as a clearance. So, but like I'll put in, like coming out of Aspen, I'll put in the Lens 4 or 8 or whatever they're up to, and all I'm telling them is that I'm going to take off and I'm going to do that procedure because I don't want to have to do the climb gradient and overheat my engines the way they sometimes want you to do. And so, I'll do that, but I will, in addition, because I'm VFR, I will tell them that, I'll tell the tower, I am planning on departing and, doing the right turn and then making, heading west for, VFR climb. And they appreciate you saying that as well as I filed that, and because otherwise they expect you to be able to just climb on out of there. And some, a cool day, winter or something like that, you can do that. But on a hot day, it's a little dicey when you start heading to those, sorry, yes.
We were leaving Tucson, and it was VFR supposedly. We ended up seeing clouds ahead of us, so we asked for a pop-up clearance to go through it. ATC made us go around the land and refile and go around.
They wouldn't take it, they wouldn't take it.
Wow, that's unusual.
It is, and it was the difference between an ICAO and a domestic clearance. Were you in?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was the difference between asking for a domestic clearance, which he should have given us,
Yeah.
or an ICAO clearance, which he was trying to get. So, I think if you're aware of that, it makes it a little.
So, if you are coming into, let's just say Kansas City, which is kind of out by itself, and they don't have to do any handshaking, so they don't really mind pop-up clearance either coming in or departing, or if you take off and you take off VFR and then you pick it up in the air. But when there's handshakes that they have to do, they get testy about it. And so what I found is, okay, this was south of Dallas, and I took off. It's VFR below like 5,000 feet, and I contact Kansas City, but I'm not really Kansas City. I'm close enough to Dallas where I should have been approach, but he sent me over to like Waco approach, and that guy chewed me out and said, "What are you doing?" I go, "I just took off and I'm flying along and I have a flight plan. Can you pick it?" And he said, "Well, we don't do that." And he goes, "But I will." And but the other thing is, every flight plan doesn't go to every workstation where they're sitting. So he did have to actually pull it up. I think he just had to put my tail number in and it came up. But still, it's extra work for them. That's why if they're really busy.
Dallas too for the same thing.
Did you? Yeah.
I know some places.
You, yeah, yes,
A lot of this is from both the routes and as well as getting favors or not getting favors. As COVID kicked out thousands of controllers that retired early and went out.
yeah,
They didn't train anybody for 18 months. They're short almost 4,000 controllers now. And then I find when the new controllers come on, and I go through Potomac approach all the time, they screw up all the time.
yeah.
Watch them. They don't want to kill you, but you really got to watch them. There's a lot of new controllers out there. Not everybody.
And they don't really have a clue sometimes as to what they're doing. You know, and also I've received a fair number of radial, with proceed to the whatever radial at this distance at 30 miles or 25 miles, and then, and you know, you can put that in, and let's see, but you've got to remember it's like if it's the OKC VOR, then it's slash, is the radial first or is the distance first? And you got to remember how to do that. And when they give that to you and it's a clearance, now I got to figure that out. But at least you're doing it on the ground. And if you pick up a clearance in the air and they give it to you, it's so. I mean, I usually do pick up my clearance on the ground. And if you have a headset that has Bluetooth, it is super easy to do. They're really pretty good about giving clearances. And
Well, I was too stupid to know about the difference between asking for the clearance.
yeah,
I was at the point where, okay, what four numbers would you like to put into my transponder?
Yeah.
Starts with 77.
yeah. Well, I had one. I was near Austin. Those controllers down there are kind of testy, and it took off, and it was off of a. I was supposed to be flying a route towards it, so I was about almost 100 miles away from it, like 80 miles, and I was supposed to pick up an intercept and then fly that radial to that point. He comes on, he says, I show you 2 miles to the west of your, the course you're supposed to be on. And I'm like, well, the accuracy of the VOR is 4 miles, so, it could be the VOR. I mean, this way, I was on GPS, but still, a new guy. He should know it's a path. It's a fairly wide path. What other questions? We have a couple more minutes, but all right.
In terms of practicality, they tell you to go there, you say no, I don't want to do that, help out, X, and explain the reason why, even Potomac, or real pain in the ass, normally will accommodate you.
Yeah, and that's a good point. When you're deviating, they almost always know why you are deviating, and so you can ask for a couple of degrees, whatever. But I did have a time where I asked for, I think, 15 degrees, and I got maybe 20, and then maybe 25, and the guy came on and he goes, okay, where are you going? And I go, well, I'm deviating. And he said, I know, but where are you deviating to? And he said, how about, let's pick a point that you're going to go to, because I can't have you just wandering around out there. So, the other thing I'll tell you is that VFR on top, I don't know, does anybody ever use VFR on top? I use it a fair amount. A lot of these new controllers have no idea what it means, and they will flat out cancel your IFR clearance. And you'll be coming in, they say, well, no, I'd show you VFR. I go, well, is VFR on top? They go, that's VFR. I go, no, that's actually an IFR clearance, but I don't have time when I'm flying into somewhere to train these guys, but they do not know it. So make sure.
Ask for IFR to be on top.
Yeah.
Of course, California's got the low overcast.
Yeah.
Maybe 20 feet thick.
It's a really handy tool. If you haven't used it, it's a handy tool because, and it says VFR on top, it just means you're staying VFR. You could be below the clouds too. And I've had controllers thank me, like coming out of Aspen, I asked for VFR on top, VFR climb, and I climbed up there. He didn't have to worry about me. I stayed out of his hair, and as he checked me off, he said, thanks for the help. And
You report 2,000 feet above the clouds when you reach VFR. They want to know that
yeah.
you're in VFR.
And when you are no longer able to maintain VFR, you have to ask for, say, I'm no longer able and I need a IFR clearance. And they will give it to you, and you know, but try to do that far enough out to where it's not, if they screwed up somehow, you've got a little bit of time and you're not just holding or something like that. So, are there any other things that people?
I was just gonna make a quick comment, you know, if you're doing IFR and VFR on top, you do have to make sure that you not only clear the clouds, but you are 1,000 feet above zone million.
Yeah. Of course, that's I'm the only one really can tell whether I'm that far above or not, but, you know,
What they say is, what are the tops, and you say 3,000, and you're trying to cancel 3,100, you're gonna get you.
okay.
It's happened.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good point. Yep. I think the other thing is, let's just say you're going to descend. I mean, it's really handy. You're coming into let's just say I'm going into Tulsa and there's not a lot of airspace I have to worry about, but there are some little puffy things that I don't want to fly through and, you know, bounce my passengers around. So I can do a VFR descent and I can just go, you know, around them and they're fine with that. But the thing to remember is, really monitor your communications, because let's just say all of a sudden you drop below, you miss your handoff. Now all of a sudden you're showing up on, you know, Tulsa approach, and they're like, he's IFR, but he's just flying around like crazy. And so, you know, you need to make sure that they know and you get a handoff and all that. Yeah, that happened to me one time, and when I got to him, they go, "Are you IFR or VFR?" And I go, "I was VFR on top." And he said, "Oh, so you were VFR," which was good because he said, you know, if I was IFR, I was not doing what I was supposed to be doing. So, okay. Yes, Richard.
Tomorrow there's going to be a lot of airplanes departing the airport, so we ought to agree on a runway. You know, 30 is probably the longest runway. As long as the weather permits, we ought to agree to depart on 30.
Whatever the wind says.
Yeah.
Well, except 1, 2 is not authorized for departure to the IFR.
Oh, right, okay.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Yep. And back there?
Well, I was just gonna say, I live here in town, and that airport is super busy, Marana, you know, with the training going on. So I don't know what kind of good neighbor policy you might have if you say, well, I want to take off in 30 and everybody's doing 1, 2, for example. You might consider doing like the get your clearance in the air or something like that.
Yeah.
It's just that, you know, we're going to be loaded with fuel. It's fairly.
How short is the other runway?
It's less than 4,000.
Less than 4?
And the other one's 7,000.
You know, I think, you know, what I would say is, if it were me, I would ask I would taxi over there and say, hey, you know, traffic on whatever, I'm departing now 30 because, you know, I'm sorry to interrupt, and I'll proceed direct out and try to stay out of your way. But, you know, I mean, you do as a pilot, you do what you need to do to be safe. And there's nothing wrong with going on the longer runway, in my opinion, so.
No, I mean, the accelerated stop distance on the less than 4,000 foot runway.
Yeah.
Cuts it
Yeah,
off.
and you know, I'll tell you one thing. Just remember that what they tell you to do. I'm talking about controllers. I always try to do it, but if they can set you on a path to where you run out of options, and at some point you have to decide, I'm not doing that, and you just say unable. And then you do and then you deal with it. If they give you a phone number, they give you a phone. I found that they usually don't. If they kind of, oh, okay, well, but I've had them land too close behind other airplanes. I've had them, you know, and there's a real problem now. A lot of times people will taxi onto the runway, and I don't know whether they're doing training in the cockpit but they'll sit there for like a minute before they power up, or they're maybe doing their post-landing checklist on the runway. But, you know, they've told me to go around when my wheels were practically on the ground. And yeah, I had to talk to them, and then I had to talk to the FAA, but I did what I thought was safest. I put it on the ground. I never got closer than, you know, 5,000 feet to the other airplane. But, you know, you do what you think is the safest and then worry about the rest of it. And because at some point I had to decide, because I asked him if I could go extend my downwind, and he said, no, you're fine, turn your downwind now. Not your base leg. I said, can I just extend my downwind, give me a little more room? He said, no, I've got other traffic, you need to turn your base now. And that was all on the tape, and so of course they conveniently lost that tape, but the FAA guy said, you know, that to me confirms that what you said is the correct interpretation, you know, what happened. Yeah, I did. But, okay.
Thanks, Joe. Couple of comments. Berdella is my flight controller, and we looked at that weather. We'd be going on Wednesday. Wednesday was a VFR day. And the reason I'm bringing this up is I talked to Ron Cox about once a week, and he's